for good. I couldn't imagine being trapped in such a lonely and awful place for so long. I know this isn't what you're used to, but where am I? My set. See?
What am I doing here?
I need help with something.
Oh, that's easy. The O's missing.
I need help reviewing it.
Oh. That makes more sense.
Trick or Treat is an anthology horror film, much in the same vein as Creepshow or Cat's Eye. In fact, it's almost a marriage of the two concepts, since it uses comic art in its transitions and follows events around a single character throughout the many otherwise unrelated stories.
Cat's Eye.
Yes, it's for another time. It's 3 tales of true terror.
With a cat.
Shut up. The film was based loosely around the idea created by Michael Dougherty. He made an animation called Season's Greetings in 1996 about a little boy with a burlap sack on his head that gets more than treats in his Halloween night out.
And people watched this.
Hell, if the spirit of Christmas created South Park,
This is hardly surprising.
he'd been pushing to make this character named Sam the central star of a Halloween-themed movie for years afterward, finally pairing with producer Bryan Singer to make this movie for release in 2007.
Oh, but here it says that it wasn't released until 2009, and that was directly to DVD.
Yeah, the studio didn't exactly trust the Dougherty-Singer duo to deliver a blockbuster.
Why not?
Oh.
But that still doesn't explain why they buried it so hard. I mean, it's got Brian Cox, Dylan Baker, and Anna Paquin pre-Sookie. Strangely star-studded cast for a DVD direct debut.
It did have select screenings at conventions around the country for 2 years to make sure that it spread the word of how awesome it was before disappearing into the dollar DVD bin.
Awesome is a dangerous word.
Overused, actually, but I don't misuse it here. Why would I be talking about it otherwise?
Because you're lonely?
Do you want to help or not?
Well, I'm already here, so let's do this.
So, what do you think?
I'm confused. That was really good.
I know!
When I first heard of this concept, a Halloween-themed horror anthology, I was sure it'd be cheesy vignettes about trick-or-treaters and the hijinks that leaves me feeling like it could have been so much better. Hollywood Halloween always seemed out of touch and exaggerated compared to what everyone experiences, so I expected something between Hocus Pocus and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Instead, I was greeted with a familiar setting with average people with just a hint of supernatural and otherworldly things mixed in to give me a truly unique, mischievous night on All Hallows Eve. It's quite unexpected.
Where do you want to start?
Before we start, let's get this out of the way.
Yeah. Now, let's learn about the Sackcloth Kid. A playful yet menacing figure, Sam is a small childlike creature with a burlap sack both in his hand and on his head. While he's a very creepy figure, he's just adorable enough to be really marketable.
What makes you say that?
Just a feeling.
Uh-huh. Sam looks warm.
He is! Sam, short for the Gaelic term Samhain, embodies the spirit of Halloween. He observes and enforces the rules of the season.
With that one naming convention, he symbolizes the shared traditions of the autumnal traditions as observed by pagans since ancient times, as well as the rules modern society adheres to concerning the season. He is both a manifestation of the day's history and the behaviors of modern people's feelings about their Halloween festivities, all wrapped up into one. He creates a face for any fan of the spooky, candy-filled month to get behind.
Yeah, as long as you don't see his actual face.
Baby Pumpkinhead isn't as nice.
Yet somehow, this fact works as a metaphor for All Hallows Eve. While at its core, the holiday may have darker and recently extremely commercial intent, the modern Halloween is celebrating the internal desire people have to put on a mask for a come-as-you-aren't occasion. Don't worry, be scary.
What are you talking about?
You know, people are deeply dissatisfied with their lot in life, so they take on characters and wear costumes to be anyone else.
You think everyone's like that?
I guess I hope most people.
See, I have a different theory. Donning symbols and visages of scary aspects of the world helps to ward off those spirits that would do harm, showing these nefarious forces that the humans do not fear them. Having the wherewithal to do this before winter casts its long shadow on the world carries an optimism into the rest of the long, cold year. See, that's a much more sane explanation as to why people costume themselves and adorn their place with terrifying symbols.
Well, I suppose. I guess I just relate to the first one more.
Sounds like a scary personal problem. Speaking of scary, did you know scaring is the cornerstone of many of the traditions surrounding Halloween, including some specifically made for this film? Keeping a candlelight vigil for the dead is a long-standing practice, wearing costumes of malevolent spirits to frighten those that seek them to do harm, and even the modern sensibilities like always check your candy serve one purpose.
They were started to protect us, but nowadays, no one really cares.
Those that follow the rules are spared the wrath of Sam.
So regardless of whether or not they're good people, Sam just cares that they follow an arbitrary list of rules?
He's lawful neutral all the way.
So annoying.
With its mascot firmly established, let's discuss the meat of the movie, the cast of 1,000 faces. I would argue, but part of this film does contain hundreds of extras. Filming took place partially in Vancouver, where they picked up ready-made extras for the scene.
Some to show off, others to blend in, but all to celebrate the magical night of Halloween.
Many of those people behind the reporter are actual participants in the Parade of Lost Souls, hosted in East Vancouver every Halloween.
You'd think it'd be a one-off sequence, but due to the movie's non-linear structure, we're going to watch main characters go in and out of this crowd basically for the whole duration. And that's a fun bit of trivia that those that participated in the event that year got to see the costumes immortalized on the silver screen. Out of this sea of faces comes a quad of tales from 4 very different perspectives. It'd be hard to link them together if the screenwriters didn't do such a good job of theming. These 4 tales find common ground in what they represent, the stages of Halloween as experienced within our lives. Let's tackle it in 4 phases, beginning with the most logical, youth.
What's that story again?
Oh, the one with the serial killer in it. Oh yeah. Meet Principal Wilkins, a staunch observer of many traditions around this night. He leaves candy out for trick-or-treaters, letting them make their own choices of costume.
That's right. There's another tradition. Very important one. Always check your candy.
That's dark.
Then let's make it hilarious.
We know you're in there! We can see you!
Just a minute!
This may be the darkest sitcom I've ever seen. One might wonder how this wondrous scene can be linked to a child's Halloween.
Daddy! I want to carve the jack-o'-lantern out, but I need help with the eyes.
In a minute, Billy.
And can I go to the parade with you later?
No, Daddy has a date.
But we haven't done anything fun together.
That's right, he's committing murder with his own child in the house. Well, everyone's experience is different. No 2 parents are the same. While it's outlandish that Stephen Wilkins' behavior goes unnoticed, even on the bloodiest of nights, his son Billy adopts the actions of his father as normal, even dressing like him by the end of the night. We become accustomed to the traditions we grow up with, regardless of whether or not they're shared with the rest of the world. But he wouldn't have blindly accepted his father's actions unless Stephen made an effort to include his son in those activities. Which, yeah.
Wrap it around.
But don't forget to help me with the eyes.
Shared memories often lead to positive association, even if it's about horrific things. No matter how traumatizing one's childhood is, if the parents make an effort to associate those actions as part of the traditions and sharing them with the child, a positive impact will be likely. Just don't be like the Wilkins. Stick to pumpkins for your jack-o'-lanterns. Onward to teenagers. The first major group outside of family, cavorting with friends while trick-or-treating is the first taste many kids have of what being an adult will be like. No wonder parents tend to let this kind of thing happen very rarely these days. We follow a group of 3 teens who are collecting jack-o'-lanterns from houses. The pumpkin kind, not the Wilkins variety. Thank you. And they come across an interesting sight.
Trick or treat!
Aren't you guys adorable?
Thanks, Mrs. Henderson. That's a
great costume.
All right, fine. I'll see what I got.
Actually, Mrs. Henderson, we were sort of wondering if you might...
Is this what being a teenager was like? Oh yeah. While popularized in media as the renegades, the truth is teenagers are often the most close-minded conservative minds in the world. Nothing mortifies the average 14-year-old more than pushing the boundaries established. Ironic, since most claim to want to change the world but are frightened by something outside their own view. So while they're out gathering these carved pumpkins for their own snarky purposes, they're mortified by adults at a party doing whatever adults want to do. That freedom is both exhilarating and terrifying. So instead of embracing their upcoming choices, they flee back to childish things, like picking their target for the night. They pick up Rhonda, a socially challenged girl who loves carving pumpkins and enjoying every aspect of the holiday, including knowing its roots.
You must really like Halloween.
You mean Samhain?
What?
Samhain, also known as All Hallows Eve, also known as Halloween. Predating Christianity, the Celtic holiday was celebrated on the one night between autumn and winter when the barrier between the living and the dead was thinnest, and often involved rituals that included human sacrifice.
They terrify Rhonda by telling her about a tale of 8 children, all with mental or physical conditions, who were trapped on a bus and driven off of a cliff on purpose. One man was hired to do the deed by the parents, sick of the responsibility of caring for their special needs kids. First off, this sounds like the kind of story some jerk teenagers would make up. And secondly, this movie does something kind of cool with this sequence. You see this bus full of children? The ones freaking out that they're about to die? The producers hired children with real disabilities and injuries to play those kids in the masks. According to all accounts, they had a blast playing people who got killed by their parents. This movie is strangely awesome the more I learn about it. It takes these little moments that could otherwise be awful and turn them into something transcendent, such as how this tale concludes. I won't say more than Sam approves of Rhonda's methods, while the rest of the kids, not so lucky. It once again boils down to respecting the night versus disrespecting the dead, which on a holiday immediately followed by Day of the Dead, the latter is very important. But life is more than respecting the past, and sometimes you've got to embrace the present. Which brings us to our next story, young adulthood. I don't know how I'm supposed to react to that. Anna Paquin plays Lori, and her story is sadly the most transparent on second viewing. Her and her girlfriends hop around town trying to get Lori her first. How is anyone's guess, but I suspended my disbelief harder before.
Do we really want to spoil that one too?
Only in one way. Whereas the teenage storyline is about someone towing the line of change and ultimately retreating, the college-age story instead talks about embracing that darker side you mocked in your youth and refused to try and understand, and fully stepping into that transformation to the mischievous, nefarious ways that the season is famous for. Most people do get their hands a little dirty, and some really enjoy it. Others, well, that's where our last story comes in. Let's talk about the final stage of Halloween, the Bitter Hermit. What was that? A timely arrival. Let's see who it is.
What did the DM put you away for this time?
I just glued some cat ears to his head.
Huh. Was it worth it?
Back is the ears, not my hair.
It's all together now. How am I supposed to know?
Just
And you can see there's the ears, there's the hair. They're one. I mean, I can't get this to do anything.
Just get me Anthro.
I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Who's this guy?
I was wondering if you'd like to relate the story of Mr. Krieg from Trick or Treat.
Ah, yes. The Samhain. Once upon All Hallows Evening, Mr. Krieg sat weak and wheezing over many quaint and curious episodes of forgotten horror. There he nodded, nearly napping. Suddenly there came a tapping, as if someone gently rapping at the bare front door. Just some treaters, he sputtered, tapping at my bare front door. For all this, I'll shout some more. Presently his scowl grew stronger, hesitating there no longer. Brats, said he, or hoodlums, truly your presence I do scorn. But the fact is, I've no candy, and yet gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my bare front door, that I was sure you knew I'd curse you. Here he slammed shut the door. Sam was there, and nothing more. Deep into his dark eyes peering, long he stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, seeing things no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence wasn't broken, and Sam's stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoke was the whispering phrase, "Some more?" This he whispered, and echo murmured in turn, "Some more?" Back towards the mantle turning, all his soul within him burning. Soon again he heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. Up above he slung his stare, when with surreal taunting air, perched upon the popcorn texture just above his bare front door, perched and stared. And nothing more. This burlap sack demon turned scowl to screaming, while the stark and blank decorum over the countenance it wore. "Prophet," said he, "thing of evil, prophet still, if kid or devil. By this eve that binds between us, this night I do abhor. Tell the soul with sorrow laden, if within my troubled stroll, it shall clasp a single night's peace. Quoth Sohawan, nevermore." And the child, ever smirking, now with candy content to snirking, walked through the archway to the bare front door, and his eyes had all the seeming of a demon that is dreaming, and the lamplight by it streaming throws Krieg's shadow on the floor, and his soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.
You've been waiting for that, haven't you?
Longer than you know.
Thanks, storyteller.
See you soon.
You alright? Yeah, just take it for a bit. We all come at this from different places, but at the end of it, we're all celebrating for the same reason. Transition. Exchanging warm temperatures for chilly nights, watching as harvest gives way to hibernation, seasons retiring for another year of slumber, and throughout it all, there is an unseen presence that reminds us there's more to this time of year than pumpkin spice flavoring. It's a communal celebration that made its mark for a reason. We cannot forget that death is just another aspect of life, and we can celebrate those things that terrify us, even as they threaten to ravage our way of life. Never forget to protect yourself, or else Sam will make sure you never make that mistake again. And that's where I made my mistake.
What?
I didn't protect myself. I kept blaming him, but fact is, he got out. I gave up.
Who are you talking about?
Psycho. I blamed him for my failure, claiming he was the one who surrendered, but then he heard my chastising and changed his ways. Now he's pulled together and brought himself out of isolation, taking the reins and running the show. I'm jealous, but I get it. I passed on my chance. I'm ready to go now. I gave him the push he needed to save himself. And that's something.
Okay.
Goodbye, Socio. I hope you find the peace that I have. Mental nature. It's a great way for them to look back at the past, acknowledge it, while looking forward to where they're going. Now the 5th Christmas special that South Park gave to me. Butter's very own episode.
Pull harder! Harder! On the ears, not the hair!
Oh, this isn't working.
Damn you, storyteller.
I think they're nice.
Really?
No.
Well, why did you say that?
Make you feel better.
Well, it didn't work. Okay, it did. It did. I actually need that little uplift in this situation right now, but...
Who's a good DM?
Stop that!
can't believe I held a straight face long enough for that to go.